So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our seminar, our webinar this afternoon. It's part of the European Education Month, so thanks for attending, and thanks to the Educational Leadership Network Europe for organising the event and all the others in the programme, which obviously is focusing on the month's topic of collaborative leadership for the future of education. And just a bit of housekeeping to start. This session is being recorded. You'll have heard the announcement just now. The chat is open and we'll be monitoring that chat as we go through. I'll be looking after that. So do feel free to pop questions in there if you have any. And we've got some time for questions at the end as well. So I'll just share my screen because I've got a presentation that will be able to is that presentation showing now? If somebody could let me.
Not yet.
Is that showing?
Yes.
Fab.
So do the slideshow, Jane.
Oh yes, thanks, Eleanor. I shall do that. Okay. So I'll just start off with an overview of where we are, what we're going to be going through. So we'll introduce ourselves in just a second, and then we're going to kind of talk through the background to the project, and then focus a little bit more on how leadership evolved and what that leadership looked like within the project, and talk about the collaborative nature of that and how it changed and altered as we went through. Be looking at some of the outcomes, or looking at one of the main outcomes of the project, and then talking about the next steps that have come out of it. I've lost, because I've got my screen showing, I can't see my colleagues now. So if people tell me when they want me to move the slides on, I'll do that. But we'll just go through, introduce ourselves. So you know who we are. So my name's Jane Dorian. I lead the early childhood team at the Open University, and also from the Open University, I've got my colleague Natalie. Would you like to say hello, Natalie?
Hi, I'm Natalie Canning. I'm part of the early childhood team. I'm also one of the co-directors of the Children's Research Centre at the Open University.
Fab. And also we've got Eleonora. Hi, Eleonora.
Hello everybody, I'm Eleonora from the same team, early childhood team at the Open University, and on the steering group of the early childhood research group.
Magic. And we've also delighted to have our colleagues from University of Debrecen in Hungary. So we've got Annika. Do you want to say hello?
Yeah. Hello everybody, I'm Annika Varga-Nagy and I'm from the Department of Child Education from Debrecen University, Hungary.
Brilliant. And last but no means least, Tamás.
Hello everyone. Yes, my name is Tamás Szőlősi and I'm also working in the University of Debrecen, but I was working as a kindergarten teacher, as an early childhood educator when we started to this project.
Magic. So to start us off, I'm going to hand over to Natalie, who's going to talk us through the background to the project.
Jane, the slide is not moving.
Oh, why not?
On our screen, we've only got the first one and not in the slideshow mode.
Oh. Let me just... let me just see what... Is that moving now?
No.
Have you got our host, the ELNE host? Are you still around? Are you able to help us? That's it. Okay, we've gone to the second one. Great. There we go.
Yeah.
So we need the next slide would be the introductory slide. So keep going, one more. I don't know what you can see, Jane, but
so I can't. Nothing's moving for me there now. Apologies, everybody.
Right, you are not sharing anymore.
What's showing on the screen now?
No sharing, Jane, at all.
Oh.
Now something changed. Yeah, we can see your monitor, I guess.
Not the slides.
This is frustrating because it's showing on my screen. It's not showing.
No.
Tamás, have you got the PowerPoint? Are you able to share?
I'm going to download this. I think it's a minute, please, and maybe I can share it. I'm going to try it.
Thank you.
Do you want me to talk through the background of the project while we're trying to sort out the technology?
That would be useful. Thanks, Natalie.
Okay. So this project is a collaboration between the Open University and Debrecen University in Hungary. And we were really interested in children's rights and how children felt about their rights, what kind of views they had, and where they sort of place themselves in relation to those. And it's not something that is widely talked about, not really in the UK or in Hungary, although we probably have a wider appreciation of children's rights in the UK. So it's interesting to understand kind of the differences of approaches of children's rights between Hungary and the UK. But widely accepted that children should be active rather than passive participants on matters that are important to them and impact on their lives. And we were really interested to have kind of those lived experiences of children and how they really thought about the things that mattered to them and how they were then able to express those. We think about children's rights and we don't really think then about kind of the mechanics of what happens when we talk about children's rights, or what kind of that means in terms of the practicalities of research with children. And this project, we were really keen that it was participatory, that children were able to have a voice, and not just in a tokenistic way, but, you know, really be central to the research that we were doing and really be the core of what we were trying to achieve through the project. And so we employed participatory approaches to thinking about how we could approach this research, how we could support children in forming their opinions and expressing their views through the ways in which they felt most comfortable with. And there were lots of different ways that we did that. So we started by talking to practitioners about what they did in their practice, to kindergartens and the pedagogues that worked within them. And then we also talked to the children about the things that they really enjoyed doing and things that would really help them to express their views a little bit more. We emphasised the research around the children, really about them rather than what we were doing to them. And that meant as a research team, we sort of had that stand back approach. We stepped away from being, you know, the people that were the focus of the research. It was the children that were really important to us. And we had to keep that in mind when we were thinking about the ways in which we were going to work with the children, looking through the child's eye, if you like. And so the children are seen as sort of or primary researchers. And we really tried to make sure that they were at the forefront of everything that we did within the project as it evolved and as it changed. And that meant really being led by those children as well. So the challenges of understanding the United Nations rights of the child. And historically, children and young people have been silenced and marginalised and potentially excluded from those decisions that concern them. You know, things happen to children, and children are put in situations that they have no control over. And we really wanted within this research that that wasn't the case, that they really had a sense of control and a sense that they were being heard through the different opportunities they had to express their voice through the different activities that we did with them, and the way that we collected the data, and then the way that we analysed that data as well. We wanted to ensure that children hadn't been used in any way, so that when we received the voices of the children, whether that be through what they were saying or what they were doing, that we took those views seriously, and we tried to interpret those voices of children, whether that be verbal or non-verbal cues, in a really respectful way. Traditionally, childhood and children's lives have been captured through adult voices, and that was something that we were aware of, and we really wanted to make sure that we tried to ensure that we had those aspects of children's lives that perhaps children didn't always want to share with adults, or felt a little bit not able to share with adults because they were unsure of how adults would respond to them. So we were really trying to be inclusive in that nature, and also very supportive of children and understanding what they meant when they were expressing their views in different ways. And we wanted to make sure that we were inclusive, so ensuring that everyone was represented within the kindergartens that we were able to visit and use the data within, and also that we were giving an authentic view to those children's voices. And so our focus was on how children's rights are understood culturally, socially and geopolitically, and of course children are probably not aware of those things, but when we were listening to children's voices, we were obviously aware of the wider connotations and also the wider implications for children's voices. But we really wanted to ensure that children felt comfortable in being able to express their views. And we did that through understanding that slow participatory approach. That's from Alison Clark, the way that she talks about standing back from practice and really being able to take time to understand what's happening in situations, but also allowing children to take the lead in those situations as well. So not assuming that we knew something or anything about the children that were in those settings, but being able to take that step back and really listen to children. Be collaborative, not just with the children taking part in the research, but also with the kindergartens participating, and really developing that sense of community of practice, so that we all came to the research with a growing understanding of what that meant and what it would mean to the children involved. And there was also a bilingual aspect of the project because of our colleagues in Hungary and also in England, and that language difference, and also kind of the way that we approach children's rights is different in those two countries as well. So that was really interesting to have those discussions between us. So I think I'm handing on now to Eleonora.
Thanks, Natalie. Thank you, Tomasz. So as Natalie explained, the three key principles of our project was collaboration, the slow participatory design, as well as the bilingual cross-cultural approaches. So I'm steering the conversation now to the leadership element of this project, which is the focus of this seminar. So these three principles of the project required us to have the kind of leadership that aligned constructively with the three principles outlined by Natalie, and also with the focus of study, which of course was children's voices and hearing their voices and taking it seriously. So it would have been churlish of us not to apply all of this and the focus to how we conducted ourselves throughout the research, hearing all stakeholders' voices, as well as giving them weight, giving those perspectives weight. So conceptually, the Londi model of participation supported us in our collaborative leadership. The four key components of the model, space, voice, audience, and influence, required us project PIs, prime investigators, to lead, but also to make space for colleagues and all those involved in the project to step forward from their own position of expertise and lead us. The subsequent slides that are coming up are going to illustrate with examples how this collaborative leadership played out in real life. And firstly, Aniko and Tamás will be explaining their perspective, their view, almost being on one end of the leadership. Project PIs are Natalie, Jane, and myself, and the Professor of Early Childhood, Sándor Pálfi from Debrecen University. And then, of course, we worked with colleagues as well as worked with practitioners. So Aniko as a colleague and Tamás as a kindergarten pedagogue, actively being part of the project, are going to share their views, how leadership, collaborative leadership felt to them throughout the project. So I'll hand over and then you can move your slides, Tamás, as you wish.
Yes, thank you so much. So in the beginning, I was like a kindergarten teacher, so an educator. It was really amazing for me, and it was really excited. I was when the researchers asked me to join to this project, because I was worried about what can I do, what can I do with this project and in this project. And actually, I wasn't alone, because in the beginning we were more like as a kindergarten teacher. So we had a lot of questions in the field with the kids and with the other colleagues. But luckily we had 5 online meetings, and we started to talk about it. And we had questions like, what shall we do? How can we ask the kids at the kindergarten? Because it could be so directly when I ask a kid, what about your rights? You know, this is not the good way to ask a kid or a child about what can we do with this. This is not the best way. So we started to think about it. How can we make information? How can we collect information about their thoughts? So it was like a lot of brainstorming, those 5 online meetings, and finally we understood, and we realized that this is not so complicated. We wanted to find an easy way to talk with the kids and to collect informations. So the main point was to do something which is familiar for the kids and for us as well. I mean, for the educators as well. And in the end, we made a toolkit together. Because we tried some methods, but tools at the kindergarten, and we collected those ideas. And after that, the researchers made a toolkit, but we made it together, and it was the best way, I guess, to work together. We tried it with the kids, and we thought that, and we saw that okay, something is working, something not. Okay, we decided that, and you know, it's like it's up to the kids, it's up to the child. So sometimes it's working, sometimes not. But this toolkit was really good, and it is, because it exists, of course, because we can choose, and the kids also can choose. So these toolkits include 9 core areas like drama, dance, talking circles, and so on. So those activities were familiar to children and for us as well. So it was the easy way. And we made videos, and we give reflections to the researchers. So it was a lot of information for the researchers, I guess, but
Yeah,
they could manage this, to do something with those informations.
Yes, that's true. So when the data gathered, you know, the researchers from the child education department and the faculty gathered together for a 3 days workshop, and the data analysis started. And thematic analysis was used for the data interrogation. So from the video of the toolkit, activities, pedagogue self-reflections, focus groups, and a systematic review was conducted, identifying patterns of reoccurring words and topics relating to the children's rights. So these were identified as the codes. And from the codes, themes were identified and analyzed in relation to the research question, reflecting on the theoretical framing of the social-cultural theory. And thematic analysis as a flexible method enabled focus on analyzing meaning across the entire data set of children's play experiences and the educator's reflection. So the researchers from the Open University Children's Research Center and the faculty members of the university from the department formed the research leadership team, collaboratively interpreting, organizing, and analyzing the data at every stage of the research. So the researchers conducted the individual and group qualitative data analysis through 6 steps. And in coding, we aimed to limit the researcher's subjectivity in the most accurate and variable way possible. So therefore, we applied the 6 phase of approach recommended by Brown and Clark, which are the thorough understanding of the data, generating initial codes, searching for themes, reevaluating the themes, naming and defining the final themes, and describing the results. And after coding, grouping, defining, and meta-interpretations, we also sought connections and correlations with the UN child rights categories. So taking these into account, we formulated main themes and sub-themes of the codes.
And after that, a conference took place in the fall of 2022. And it was a good opportunity to show to the field, to show to the others, to the educators, what we did. So the conference was in 2022, as I said. Many kindergarten educators came and heard about the project, and that was the main point, to share our experience and our results. And it was a practical and a theoretical presentation as well, because we worked together, the educators and the researchers hold one presentation together. And I was with the others as well. I mean, it was a really good opportunity to share with the other teachers, but it wasn't the end, because luckily we had a chance to write it on, and we published the results in a journal for Hungarian early childhood educators, and it also a joint effort. Educators and researchers work together again. So it was a cooperation, and that was the best point, I guess. The project also reached those who were unable to attend the conference. The topic highlights one of the children's rights, and we wrote it about it, the rights, of course, and our experience. But it wasn't the end, because even more written reports and recommendations were made. So luckily we could work about it later.
Yes, that's right. So now we have to tell you something about to create the code of practice. Well, firstly, we have to mention that the legislative framework for kindergarten education and care is outlined in the Hungarian government's decree, which is the national core program for kindergarten education. And the code of practice has been completed, this national core program. So the code of practice was written based on the findings of this collaborative project. The code of practice addresses the various professionals of early childhood in order to offer them guidance and pedagogic steer for early years practice. Underpinned by empirical evidence, it offers support for practitioners to develop and reinforce dispositions and attitudes essential for practice, focusing on a child-centered and child-respecting pedagogy. So we anticipate that the foundational principles laid out in this document will further evolve as our thinking extends to areas of practice that has been not considered so far, we think. The code of practice fills the gap in practitioner guidance for children respecting approach. So what in this code is drawn from our research examining children's everyday lives, expressed conceptually in language that is understood by professionals working directly in the field in the early childhood settings. So the code of practice offers an interpretation of children's rights through pedagogic practice that goes beyond the legal process of protection. What the code of practice addresses here is those everyday care and education practices that take children seriously and respect children's rights through a listening approach. So I think that was our part. So Thomas,
Thank you.
I can move the slides.
Move the slide, on.
Slide on. So another example of our collaborative leadership is how we work together with the artists, which relates to the audience component of the Lundy model. We fundamentally created a dramaturgically scripted research which we performed, or they performed, to live audiences. So fiction was used to disseminate research. In that sense, what we created was a puppet show, a puppet play, where the script was written from the data findings so that we could take the research full circle and feed back to the children and the families themselves and to all other stakeholders involved in the project. So in the initial stages of this whole production process, the children led us because they provided us with the data, they provided with the data for the narratives. Then we researchers led the analysis, like Aniko explained, and then again worked with the artists to create the actual show, which we took back to the children for checking. So at all of these various phases and stages of this process, sometimes the children led us and we followed their guide. Sometimes we led like the analysis process, and sometimes the artists stepped forward, showing their expertise and leading us along the way. So what we managed to do within this collaborative leadership is to venture through this production process where we faced a number of dilemmas, and every time we needed to create answers for the dilemmas, then it was either the children or the researchers or the artists who led the whole process. So the dilemmas were around approaches to take to the script writing, which then was verbatim documentary, then the style of puppetry, also the staging, the music score that was specifically written for the play, and we had all had our roles. Children, we checked with children whether our interpretation was right, and it was all there, the way they intended it. With the researchers, we have been able to safeguard all of those participatory research design principles on the basis of which we were given ethical approval to carry out the research. And the artists led when their expertise came into play to actually create the puppet show, because they were the experts to know how to engage with a young audience. From the research point of view, of course, we wanted to remain faithful to the children's voices. I could go on because this was a very nourishing and very rich experience, but I won't. The next slide has got the link to the puppet show. Apologies, there isn't an English transcript, but the first 2 minutes of the show doesn't have any voice. There's no speaking. Fundamentally, what you will see is the representation of children through the puppets. They came back to life. Children came to life via the puppets. Also, you will see children present in every aspect of the show, whether it is their drawings animated, whether it is the way they move, whether it is the kind of sounds children make in settings. Those of you who work with young children know you will recognize the child in the puppet as they are enacting the script. The next slide then tells us a little bit about what this collaborative, the affordances of this collaborative leadership, really, all the way through the process. When we set off, we had a plan. So we had an intended research design, and then we put it into practice and we enact our research. But in between the plan and in between what actually happens, the reality, there's this space which we called the liminal space, that kind of includes all of the essential non-essentials. These are Jane's words. The things that may appear to be non-essential to the research process and how leadership worked out and realized in this project, but actually they were absolutely essential. One of them, for example, was the translation by translanguaging. You remember one principle was that this was a bilingual research project. So we had to work simultaneously with two languages, English and Hungarian, and we could have quite easily employed an external translator, an interpreter, to help the process. But because we all had some level of competence in using both languages, except Natalie, who only spoke English, we also had myself, the bilingual researcher, bilingual bicultural researcher, and we had this 3-day workshop for analysis. So we had the time, the space, the competences, and the cognitive presence that actually enabled us to use both languages at the same time and do the translation via translanguaging. Of course, that afforded shared meaning making, critical thinking in both of the languages, and so on. I could go on again. Ownership, that was again a fundamental principle. And you would have seen the layers of ownership. The children own the project, the practitioners, pedagogues own the project, the researchers own the project, the researchers owned, the artists owned the project. The affective element was really important because of those lovely, sensitive, positive relationship we managed to nurture all the way through the 3.5 years since the project started. Time. We said at the beginning, one principle is the slow participatory design. That time scale, which was not bound by some time scale provided by a funder, through this, we were able to shift between the leadership and being led roles all the way throughout the project. I'm mindful of the time. Jane, I'm passing over to you so that you can talk to us about next steps.
Fab. Thank you, Eleonora. So after the success and the impact and the positive vibe that had emerged around the Hungarian project, we were keen to look and see if it could be scaled up or delivered in another country, and look for commonalities and look for challenges associated with that. And we were fortunate to be able to start setting up a very small scale version of
that's come out in a creative arts output. It was really successful in Hungary. It's looking to be successful in the Welsh project as well. And we hope that's a way that children can really have ownership of the research results and you know, what they've put in. They can see their own voices in whatever it is then developed as the product from the research.
Tomasz, do you want to flick through the slides for us? Oh, here's Jane. Sorry, Jane, you were knocked out. Natalie, we can't hear you again. Not to worry, not to worry. Natalie has spoken to your slides.
Yeah, and this is really just reiterating what I said about how we're trying to look at the same principles of the project, but in a different context, in a different cultural context as well. So this is the Welsh project and what's happening there at the moment. We're sort of at the beginning of that process in Wales, whereas we're sort of towards the end in the Hungarian process.
Right.
Next.
Thank you ever so much for listening. Thank you to the presenters. Thank you for ELNE, the Educational Leadership Network Europe, for organising the seminar. And if we still have got our host present, I would imagine she will stop the recording unless it has stopped already. If not, I will, because I think I can see